Tonight, God marks the beginning of the new commandment. Maundy Thursday and Holy Week means Commandment Thursday. When Jesus gives us our mandate for ministry, our reason for the season of Easter. Yet when Jesus gives us a reason, it's unlike any other reason before in history. It's a new reason, a new commandment, a new covenant, a new testament, a new heaven and a new earth. Jesus says this new commandment is the following. And Maundy Thursday is about the new commandment, so we hear it, and we will hear it in just a few minutes in our scriptures. The new commandment is that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, Jesus says, you also should love one another. Jesus says, for I have set you an example. Jesus announces this golden rule. It's the Christian golden rule. But it does not say that we should love one another as we love ourselves. That was an older rule. This is the new commandment, the Maundy Thursday commandment. And the new commandment, the golden rule, is that we should love one another as Jesus Christ has loved us. Now, our scriptures take turns telling us of how God loves us. The new commandment that we will hear in the Gospel of John is spoken while Jesus prepares the Passover meal, and with Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. Yet because the new commandment is spoken of while Jesus is washing the disciples' feet does not mean that the foot washing is the new commandment. It is an example of the new commandment. It is an example of loving one another as Jesus has loved us. It's one way among millions that we can follow Jesus in love. The first readings, however, are different. These readings describe a quality of love that we cannot attain, a quality that we can only proclaim about God's love for us. The readings from Exodus and 1 Corinthians describe a humble service in sacrifice that in fact only Jesus can complete. A humble service in sacrificial love that only Jesus has the strength for because of his heart, the love of God. Once again, we are mandated to love one another as Jesus loved us, even when we might not or cannot take the same actions as Jesus performed for us. For example, the cross might be something that we bear, but hardly will we die upon a cross today. We're not mandated to love one another by doing the same things God did. We can't do all of God's actions over, but rather by remembering all of God's actions for us. What God has done for us. And through that, we love one another. So when it comes to the Lord's Supper, we are at God's table. And we are to do this in remembrance of me, Jesus says. In sharing the Lord's Supper, we show love for one another by remembering that there are some acts of eternal love which only God can rightly do for us. God has loved us and taken our place in death through Christ's blood. God has loved us in passing over us with forgiveness and mercy, with grace. This is a love that humans cannot manufacture. This is a love that by remembering in the Lord's Supper, we share in this heavenly tiny piece of a foretaste of the feast to come of God's love that we get to participate in now. In sharing the Lord's Supper, we share love for one another as we share God's love for us. So this is the fact. It's God's love that we share, even when our own lives cannot. This is the most accurate way of loving one another, as Christ has loved us. By loving one another with the love of God. And because Maundy Thursday is about this new commandment and living in God's love, we begin then with an act of love that each of us by God can do. Each of us can listen. Listening as an act of love. Listening to God's scriptures told once again to us. God's stories of God's love for people throughout history. We begin with this act of love. Listening to God's story. Listening to each other's story. Listening for love. So tonight, as we listen and as we share the Lord's Supper, let us be reminded on this Maundy Thursday of God's new commandment to share in this love and to invite others to join. God loves you. Amen.